back to a new episode of Brothers of the Barbell. Today we're going to discuss a topic that's pretty widely controversial on the internet, and that's arching in the bench press. We're going to cover a couple of topics on that. We're going to cover whether it will hurt your back, what it's actually used for, and why it's used in competition purposes and things like that. You will see out there's a lot of the trolls, right, jumping on the internet, and they're going to be like, oh, why are they benching like that? That's not how you bench. They're going to hurt their back. So let's cover a couple of things with that. The hurting of the back. Not necessarily going to hurt your back by arching on the bench press. One, mostly because you're on a stable surface that's horizontal and you're laying down. You're on that plane, in the horizontal plane, and there's no compressional forces on the spine. The reason we talk about extension in the squat and the deadlift and why it can hurt the spine and we don't want to overextend or overarch in those is because the body is already under compression when you're in a vertical plane. When the gravity is already compressing the spine and you put an external load on the spine, and whether it's hinging out and leaning and pulling it up on the deadlift or bringing it down and standing it up on the squat, the spine is under a compression, and when you have overextension, what you're going to do is you're already here with the lumbar spine, you're going to really overdo it and you're going to get a shearing. That shearing is what can cause pain. It's going to cause a lot of issues and it can actually help create some herniation depending on certain mechanisms. So with the bench, you don't have that problem because you are, again, laying in a horizontal plane and you're bringing the bar up and down, and the center of mass is different now. It is not the ankles because we're not in a vertical plane. It is the shoulders. So this brings me to the next topic. Why and what the arch is actually used for. In competition purposes, it is used to try to get the rib cage higher and try to minimize the distance of travel, bringing the bar down to the chest. The less distance you have to travel, less work you really technically have to do. So a lot of competitive powerlifters will do this. Now, what the arch is actually good for and how the arch should really be created is by really squeezing the shoulder blades or the scapulas together, kind of down and in, to create a push of the rib cage up. By doing that, you're going to give what we call kind of a naturally proud chest. You're going to arch up the chest, it's going to open the rib cage up, and it's going to allow you to really dig in as well, along with some of the other technique things of driving the legs and pushing into the traps. That's going to keep you tight and keep the elevation. Now, the arch in the bench press is also going to give you, by doing that, is allow you to use a lot more pectoral muscle fibers to be able to build a chest and actually recruit more fibers to bench, as opposed to the old bodybuilding, bench press where they used to bring their arms like this and straight up. By externally rotating and abducting the arms and the elbows like that, what ended up happening was they actually were internally rotating the shoulder capsule and bringing that up. They weren't externally rotating like what we're trying to do. That was causing a lot of shoulder pain because, again, they had the right idea, trying to get the bar over the center of mass, but they weren't really using enough of the chest muscles that they thought they would. So the arch will actually do everything that we just talked about, recruiting more fibers, allowing shoulder safety, right? And also allowing you to retract those shoulder blades down and in. Digging into the bench, trying to recruit that bar. Now, the other thing that it does is it does shorten the distance. As you'll see, we're going to lay Kevin down here on the bench and let you see what it looks like with a flat chest or a flat back. He's just going to lay flat. He's not going to arch or squeeze the shoulder blades. You're going to see that there's quite a bit. If he brings the bar down where a lot of people automatically determine that they should bring the bar down, which is at the bottom of the sternum, there's a lot of distance between the shoulder and where that bar is. So when he comes up a little bit, about halfway, you'll see that distance of travel. That's a lot of room. What we do is, if we hold that position there, if we tuck him under and in, keep the elbows out under the bar nice and tight, you notice what we did is we can still come to the same place, but we've shortened that distance. So now we're trying to think of pushing the bar up and down and being over our shoulders. So when we say roll on the traps, we're trying to get you to roll up onto the traps so that you're bringing that bar up over on the top of the shoulders. Now you've shortened the distance and gotten yourself closer to that center of mass. Now when he elevates the bar, he's going to be in a stronger position and recruiting more fibers. You're going to hear people talk about turn it into a decline. In some ways, that's kind of what it does. Now, again, back to the issue of pain in the back and where you want to arch. Again, our back is made in a couple of different arches. We're going to have two lordosis arches, which are going to be in the cervical and the lumbar. We're going to have kyphotic curves in the thoracic and the sacral area. Okay, the thoracic area can extend, and extends a little more than the lumbar because the lumbar is already extended, but that's going to aid in some of that curve. And again, you're not going to really injure the back because we're on a horizontal plane. So what he's going to do, he's going to try to extend through that thoracic area as much as he can right in here, and he's going to let that lumbar do a little bit of the work too. He's going to shift that innominate bone, right, and kind of extend a little bit into the hip, right, almost like not an anterior tilt, but we're just going to kind of go under, and he's going to really squeeze those glutes. You squeeze those glutes and you lock in, that's going to save that lower back from really being hurt. And again, now you look, we've even brought that bar even closer to center of mass now, right? And we've also shortened some distance. Now, depending on how much arch you can create determines on where and how low you want to go down with the bar. But again, what we're trying to really look at is determine what it is based on your position and where this vertical forearm is. Because if that forearm ends up a little forward, you're going to lose power. If it ends up a little too far back at an angle, you're going to lose power. And that's what's going to really, where the back will hurt, because what's going to happen when you go to stand to press up, you're going to squeeze up and lift up, and you're going to overextend that back. Okay? Go ahead and relax. So a couple of things to look at again. Remember, work on your tension in the back through the scapula area, and understand the mechanics of the scaps too. The scaps are a joint. It's a scapulothoracic joint. They're not actually attached to bone the way everything else is, right? Like, you know, the shoulder joint's attached into a capsule, things like that. The scapula is a floating joint that actually floats on top of the ribs. It's attached by everything through some muscles and some tendons and ligaments, but it doesn't actually have a joint that it actually interarticulates with. So understand that, and understand that's why when we squeeze it back and down, it actually does elevate the rib cage a little bit, because it's on the outer side of some of those intercostal muscles and things like that. So understand the science a little bit, and it'll help generate a lot more power. And by doing this, you're going to have a safer bench and a stronger bench.